Go ahead, Heather.
Turn the rudder. Okay, a little more that way.
What will they think of next, and what have they thought of? Engineers at the Technical University of Nova Scotia are involved in a competition. It's the 4th annual Analog Electronic Design Competition being held tonight in the gym at Tons, and they were just working on their projects today. Some fascinating stuff there, no question about it.
Well, fascinating stuff in the old ATV weather computer, too. Here's Steve to dissect it. Steve?
Thanks, guys. Rather cool out there tonight. We'll see temperatures just as we saw last night, down into the minus double digits in some areas, especially in northern New Brunswick. Quite a bit of cloud out there right now. We're expecting that to push off in the next few hours. Still some flurries expected. It'll all push off overnight, but we do have another disturbance back to the west. Here it is right here, which will slide in for tomorrow by noon in most areas and give us a few flurries. But when we wake up, the drive to work looks good, a mix of sun and cloud. A little cool out there, -6 to -2. And tomorrow's weather, the temperatures warm up quite nicely, 1 to 3 degrees under showers and a few flurries out there, especially in northern areas. And guys, I had a real time starting my car this morning. It was so cold, and I think that may happen again tomorrow morning.
Really? You had a hard time starting your car?
Me too.
Check your battery, Steve. Check your battery. You shouldn't have it. Here's what's on ATV Prime Time tonight. Oh, it'll charge you up, I'll tell you. 6:30, full house. 7 o'clock, we got Coach for you. Boy Meets World at 7:30. And then at 8 o'clock, it's Step by Step. 8:30, Mark and the gang on Hanging with Mr. Cooper. Christie's on at 9. And then at 11, ER.
And tomorrow on Live at 5, Christmas is a time for celebration. And Hollywood always has lots to celebrate at this time of year. In fact, it's one of the hottest times at the box office. We'll preview this season's sizzling offerings tomorrow on Live at 5.
That's it for the Thursday edition of Live at 5. Thanks a lot for joining us tonight. Hope you'll join us tomorrow night, same time, same place.
The news continues now with Steve Murphy. Steve.
Thank you, Nancy. Tonight, Tears and Fears. The police appeal to you to help solve a murder.
My cousin. I can't believe I don't do that. He took that little innocent baby out of to make that innocent.
$1 billion letdown. Will layoffs follow a missed shipping opportunity?
A major slap in the face for us. We pretty well figured we had that in the bag.
And bound in Bosnia, maritimers among the pawns trapped in the Civil War.
I must admit that I don't like the level of threat that is emanating from the area where our troops are being held.
Now, from the #1 news team in Atlantic Canada, the ATV Evening News.
Good evening. Just released court documents obtained today by ATV News raise some disturbing questions about a deal made between the Crown and a man once charged with first-degree murder. 24-year-old Guy Lehman Robart was charged, along with 21-year-old Kevin Allen Winder, of killing Kelly Wilniff in February 1993. But the charges against Robart were dropped. In return, he testified against Winder at his trial. The trial ended on Monday. The jury found Winder guilty. ATV's Jonathan Kay live at the News Center tonight. What new information do we have here, Jonathan?
Well, Steve, we now have access to the evidence presented at Guy Robart's bail hearing. A court-imposed publication ban kept us from reporting this while the case was before the courts, but the judge has now lifted that ban. At Kevin Winder's trial, Guy Robart, who you see here, was the key witness. His testimony was the only direct evidence that placed Winder at the scene of the crime. The rest was circumstantial. Because the Crown dropped the first-degree murder charge against him in return for his testimony, the court never heard what evidence the Crown had against Robart. But one piece was presented at his bail hearing, back before charges were dropped. The Crown presented a police statement from Guy Robart's girlfriend. She told police investigators that Robart had talked to her about Kelly Wilniff's killing. He said he was with Kevin Winder when Winder shot Wilniff, and that Robart, that is, then approached the body. Robart saw that she wasn't dead. He then shot her as well. During the bail hearing, the girlfriend called police and recanted that part of her statement. And in her decision not to grant bail, Justice Nancy Bateman admitted that caused her to put less weight on the girlfriend's police statement than she otherwise would have. Crown attorney Rob Federley, who handled the case, says the decision to strike a deal with Robart was made in spite of this evidence because the witness had recanted her statement and had disappeared. She didn't show up at the preliminary inquiry, and there was no indication she would have shown up at the trial.
Realistically,
we would have had a circumstantial case against Mr. Robart. Whether or not a jury looking at Mr. Robart would have been able to make the same circumstantial decision as they could in Mr. Winder's case, because the case was much stronger against Mr. Winder on a circumstantial level than it was against Mr. Robart, is a difficult question to answer at this time.
Now, late this afternoon, Steve, Mr. Federley told us that Guy Robart has not been completely eliminated from the Wilnuth murder case. The Crown is now examining irregularities in his testimony to see if that deal was breached. Still, he says it's unlikely he'll be charged with first-degree murder again.
All right, thanks very much. ATV's Jonathan Kay live in the News Center tonight. On to this week's murder in Halifax, where police are asking for public help as they investigate the killing of a pregnant prostitute. The police have released a picture of the victim, but they're not saying exactly how 25-year-old Kimberly Ann Lucas died. Her body was found behind a North End apartment house early yesterday. ATV's Tiffany Hussey is not far from the crime scene tonight with the very latest. Tiffany?
Steve, police are keeping certain elements of the Lucas murder case to themselves. They say they can't release certain information for fear of jeopardizing their investigation.
It's important that the investigators keep certain details to themselves without going to the public. We will acknowledge that there were lacerations on parts of the body.
This is 25-year-old Kimberly Ann Lucas. She was 7 months pregnant at the time of her death. Today, her family members were still reeling from the news.
That was my cousin. I can't believe how they'll do that. They took that little innocent baby out of to make that innocent. I mean, I got 3 kids I'm fighting for now myself. And I mean, I used to talk with Kimber and that, but I told her to stop, to give up, try to go for help too.
This was one of the strolls that Kimber Lucas frequented. Today, police released few other details about her death, saying investigators had to keep certain aspects of the case to themselves. Meanwhile, people on the streets were no more anxious to talk, citing fear of retaliation. What do you think of what happened?
No, evidently somebody bumped her off.
Is that what you think?
Well, the fact is, somebody done it.
What's the area like for drugs and prostitution now? Is it bad in the area?
I would say, yeah.
Yeah?
Yes.
What have you noticed that's been changing? More drugs or more?
Yes.
I think prostitution, I think what they should do about that, I think they should clamp down.
Nancy Hunter works at Stepping Stone, a support group for prostitutes. She says prostitution has always been dangerous, but certain factors can make it worse.
And when anybody is addicted to a hard drug, of course that clouds your judgment. You're not as able to make sound judgments.
Now, there is a considerable amount of fear on the streets. One prostitute told me today that she will not be going alone with any customers. In fact, many prostitutes will be doubling up when they go to work. And they say they're afraid since Kimber's death, but more so because no arrests have been made. Steve.
Thanks very much, Tiffany.
You're welcome.
The jury in the Gerald Fleet murder trial has heard from a man who says he taught the accused how to fight, and the lesson happened behind bars. Fleet is charged with killing Donnie Finley inside the Halifax County Correction Center last October. Today, former inmate Paul Lively testified that Fleet knew Finley was going to the jail and he planned to beat him up. Lively says he took Fleet to the jail gymnasium and taught him the punches and kicks he'd need to, quote, bring down his larger opponent. Another inmate testified that he saw Fleet punch and kick Finley, who did not fight back and was removed on a stretcher. At the time, he wasn't moving and appeared to be unconscious. It was the death of Donald Finley that prompted the government of Nova Scotia to review conditions at the County Correction Center.